Hello and welcome. And as of the recording of this video, west of the Atlantic coast of Canada is that of Wednesday, the 9th day of May 2018. The rest is the 10th day of May 2018. I do not understand why the state of Maine, or at least the northeast part of Maine, is not in the Atlantic time zone. I know the population is probably very small, but interesting on a geographical level. Not all days are the same, unless you work it out some way. Today's also crypto day. All right. So I look at Bitcoin. What I see here is that the price in the 1 hour time frame had an amazing move, which occurred on which day? 0509. The morning from the low. It held it through time and a little bit through price. Price action came down at 1700 hours. That's 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific hour. Within that time frame, it came down to the 18 average of lows. And then green candle up the next following period, next following hour. This is hour number 5. Halfway through it so far. 11:30 p.m. Eastern time right now, where it's hugging, staying within the 18 average of highs, supporting this level of resistance. And you can see it clearly on a shorter term time frame. 15-minute. This little area here at around 92.98 represents resistance at the 8:08 hour and the 10:45 through the 11 a.m. time frame. So support acting as resistance on the daily term time frame. The 18 average hasn't failed yet. It has been a decent amount of time, or it has spent the last 2 days away from the 18 average of highs. And within such, it has started to flatten with a little bit of declining along the way, because it hasn't been there, and it's front weighted. That's why it's barely declining. If it wasn't front weighted, it would be flattening with a little bit of lag, barely rising. That's why I like my averages weighted, to give more precedence to the newer moves. And especially like 18, 17, 16 periods ago, they are a lot less valuable. But throwing that part aside, the price again has been holding the 18 of highs. If we look at the number, we can see that 2 days ago, the 18 average of highs, I'm looking at the blue numbers on the upper left screen. The high was the top one, 9,612 and 91.37. Yesterday it closed at 95.98, so it went down about 14. 91.33 went up, or down, excuse me, it went down 4 points or 3 points. Today's session, 91.60. So why would it be so much higher? Well, that's because price action has to get down a bit for this to go declining. And the 18 average of highs, 95.81. Yesterday, 95.98. It's got to have a decent price to get this thing starting to rise. But if the intraday high happens to get up to 97.44, that will make it instantly rise. If the intraday low happens to go down to 8,800, that would instantly start to make these decline, and at a decent rate of descent. And thus, so far, the price action has made higher lows along the way. It has established major level low support, basically at around 87.77. because that's where it congested its first rally point on April the 20th for 3 days. After its green candle move where it gave it all back, that's where it supported it on April the 25th, April the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, as well as on May the 1st, lifting off from there on May the 2nd. So a lot of price memory comes in around that point. And as I've stated within the earlier video, or the 4-minute morning for the last session, that the must key hold is at 79.72, for I will have small area for concern if price action is not able to hold or showing weakness at the 87.50 handle. If I see it breaking down below, yes, a little bit of concern. Seeing weakness amongst 79.72 shows a lot of concern. And the concern is for price action to have a potential large price decline down to even as low as 3,000. But then again, I want to wait and see, wait for the move before I'm going to talk about as the situation, because currently it is holding and supporting this 18 average really, really well. But it still has to get above stuff like this 18 average of highs. I want to switch this over to coin market cap and go over the total market capitalization. I have this on log scale because if it was on linear scale, it would look like that. And I don't want it to look like that. I'd rather see how price moves, because price moves in a logarithmic fashion along the way, because when you look back in time when price was way higher or lower than it is at a current point, well, it was moving 10% day here and whatever, 4% there. And 10% on 100 is 10. 10% on 2,000 is 200. And 10 points, and that's the exact same move and equivalency, and you can only see that with a proper logarithmic scale chart. So on the all session, obviously this is going back to April 2013. So we're now getting to the point with Bitcoin where you can start to say you got a decent amount of data sample to work with. And with price action going sideways, a very good gain, correcting it through a combination of price and time, and then getting it back, grindingly breaking with low volatility through price and time again. The volatility didn't pick up until about a year ago, a little over a year ago, around the sometime in April last year, around the mid part of April. It did so roughly around where that mouse button is, right where I got it here, because as we can see, that's where the rate of ascent started to pick up. Now the rate of ascent, if we look at it even starting on like in January, the move from here in January to here, grinding higher, did so better than the grind that ended around Christmas of 2016. That was really going on from Christmas of the year before. So 1 full year of its rate of ascent had a small upgrade to start 2017, and then it went stir crazy. And you can see this on the log chart. You can't see this on the linear. So obviously there was a price correction in June into July. A nice small rally with another very tiny correction in August. We're going to see this more when we go to each time frame. I want to go every single one of these. From all, we'll go 1 year, year to date, 3 month, 1 month, 7 day, and 1 day. We can go through every single one of them. But we can see the small correction down here. Very good rally from September all the way through into January. And then a decent, very good sell-off. The best sell-off and correction it has had. And we can see this through this chart. Now, I've already shown the regular Bitcoin long-term chart showing how it's had its best rally since the move. So since that has taken place, we can see roughly within this vertical line that that's where the bottom has come into play, at least a bottom that's making this move. And we'll talk more about that as we get shorter into time frames. So now let's go just for the last 1 year so we can see this move a little more clearly. We want to focus more on today. I don't need to draw a trend line in here. I could, but if you connect the peaks of here and here and here, it's so easily drawn in, and it's so easily noticeable that it has broken it and has continued a rate of ascent towards the upside. Always what's important, things that I think about. I'm not going to calculate it here, but this is what goes through my head. One, the move that has brought us down here. What is some Fibonacci? Now going back to the all, which we had before. So within a key low, which low do I pick? Do I pick this low? Do I pick this low down here? Do I take, like, which breakout low do I choose? Especially because it had several periods which it grinded, because I want to see this decline. Well, I can tell just by looking at it that long term, it's barely making a 23.6, and the price action did just that with its $6,000 low. So I don't really need to see more about longer term Fibonacci, but you could calculate it from here to here. And one tip is just highlight this little area here, and then you can figure out, okay, so what's the highest number? 834 change, and yeah, around 834, 835. And yeah, so anyway, back to the 1 year chart. So Fibonacci from this high to this low, because it's already looking to be breaking past the 38.2. Because 38.2, I would be guessing, is roughly where it already resisted at about 433. I gotta figure this number out now. I mean, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not really trading this per se, although I'm trading the general market, yes. 833, 830. I'll just do 835 as the resistance high. So then we're going to look at this again for finding out this low. So let's take a look at just this point in here. So you got this low in here, you got this low down here, so it looks like the culprit will be right down here. We'll say this is the bottom. We got 243.5. So therefore, I'm looking at 38.2% at 390 and 521. They are the biggest two numbers on the market cap. And given that the price is over 400, it's already over that. I don't need to see more on this year because I see what I knew about the market, the pattern of the uptrend from point A to the high to this low. Now it's in a situation within this move that it's very important, with the bold statement that it is made that this downtrend correctionary move is over and it's ready to revert the trend. It's barely gotten going since its bottom, but it has gotten going, that any correctionary move is going to be able to hold a 61.8% down move from this low, 243.5 or something around that number, or yeah, 243.5. Not bad. My memory's still with me. And whatever this high right now happens to be, it's currently, we'll look at in the intraday, but it's ever changing as it makes new highs. But to hold, so somewhere around 325 or whatever, if it retraces down there, that's both bullish and bearish at this stage, but it's also bullish to just go up and have big moves, because within this ride higher, it's just grinding its way in an uptrend, which we'll see better as we shorten it out. So let's do this now. Go from the 1 year chart, go to the year to date chart. So we'll see it basically from the high. So there's the pattern of all the lower highs and lower lows. We can now see higher highs, higher lows. This last place which it came from was at a year to date, well, a high since the bottom anyway. And like Bitcoin, still making these higher lows, very similar, of course, to the Bitcoin chart as it should be. 3-month time frame, just pretty much getting a very similar view, just more text, less data, of course. 1-month chart. So there's the upward move that has been correcting nicely through sideways through time. So the key numbers, as mentioned, 390 and 521. So therefore we know, breaking at any of these resistance area levels, we've already got a high at 450. So that's a decent size leg to 520 and probably piercing extra above. And that's, of course, if it's resistance. And it can be resistance, pull back a bit, break it later, and then Bitcoin keeps rolling on later. But 390 was roughly around here, just before this line. So when it came up to it, originally it did so on Friday, April the 20th, or April the 30th, April the 20th. Little font size for me. Pulls back, not by much though, intraday. This is just a small move. And then it goes back to that area of that market cap, consolidates within it. Good leg higher after it. Comes back to where it comes from, finds support at that resistance area. That's why when I say a key level, when it takes it out and has a noticeable, just even the short-term move above it, that area is an area to look for support. And if you're looking for support here, you got it. Congratulations. Because since that point, the market has not been there since, and it's been rallying. This high was reached again here, but it didn't sell off or go down as far. Maybe for a decent amount of time, but didn't go down as much. And then getting above it here, but just barely. Not a decent leg, but noticeable leg above. And grinding its way lower ever since, but still holding above this level. I would have liked to see it stay above this level of resistance, which would have meant this low here holding. I see short-term lower highs and lower lows. 7-day time frame, or the last 7 days rather. So as it is loading the data from the server, it's now loaded. I remember my Commodore 64 as a child telling me oftentimes, wait to load. That old machine loaded a lot. It was a slow computer, but it worked, and computers have transitioned better. That's the thing about cryptocurrencies, and for that matter, better yet, blockchain technology. They're still very much in its early stages, and competition could very much come in and beat out every single coin on the market today. I think that's definitely possible. I think short term, just keep adjusting to and keeping an eye on the message of the market, which is why I think in physical silver there's no competition that can come out and beat it, in my opinion anyway. But cryptocurrency has great volatility, and it's a great means of accumulating physical silver. Throwing that part aside. So since this top, the price action came down in here, so it had a decent sized move, but this rally obviously was followed through with another leg lower. And it already had broken a level of resistance, because it could have very easily had a reversed move. Instead of going down this type of a line, it could have had an up move, given how it had recently broken the resistance in here. But after this move, how has it congested this big down move? Well, it has about 5 or 6 lower highs and lows, or a downtrend line where you can draw support and resistance waving lower. So it corrects and it grindily goes lower even further. Has a decent enough rally. But this is where you really wanted to hold around this area. It didn't. Big area for concern on this day here. Because this rally, which was what was stated to change this trend, didn't do such. Now it came up here, resisted it, but again, short term, it supports nothing from this low to this high, breaks this low, breaks this low as well. So yet another leg lower. One leg lower here, two, a matching one to this, so a repeat of two, and now three. So 3 leg lowers making new lows. At least within the short-term time frame, new lows, of course, when I say that. This move here did something very interesting and very bullishly. Because when you have a significant leg lower move, like the last one occurred from this high and the low, you did so with a very noticeable leg lower. So you have to give this market a lot of precedence on the short term with what we see here. I'm not going to calculate Fibonacci, but from this high to this low, it is 61.8 is like somewhere here, and it's gotten above it, and it's just stabilizing at about the 76.4 mark. So it's giving you some concern for the very short-term bearish situation. Because as the market turned into short-term bearish territory, it's looking as if, like, you really needed to resist this 432 number. Instead, it supported it. Let's now take this on the final time frame, which is the daily chart. So for the intraday move, there's your key situation where it has a very good rate of ascent on the day from the low to the high. Since then, it has just went sideways. So when I see this, I'm going to look at this level of support here, and even this one here. So 428 to 430. So yeah, around 430 and even a few numbers below. If I see weakness there, price action falling below, it's breaking that to the downside. And that isn't good because of how bearish it has been over the last 7 days. And if it's going to make a statement by not resisting 61.8 and going bullish, then it's got to get above this high. And in not doing so, then you're vulnerable not only go down to this low, but even further for another leg lower. And of course, above that level of resistance means you're talking about breaking into new highs. So we see this on the day, on the 1 day. Let's look back at the 70, the 7D, not 7D. How boot that? I'm Canadian. We don't say boot. We say about. However, that's very close to the Atlantic coast accent. A lot of Canadian imitations that I see are actually more closer to that of a combination of, well, the Atlantic coast, mainly Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and a little bit of Quebec, but mainly the Atlantic Canada. And there's a little bit of a difference between west and east, but generally I don't say a boot. And I used to say a all the time, but I don't over the last 15 or 20 years. Enough about accents. That's not why I'm here. So going higher. Well, I already had the Fibonacci. Going higher means breaking this level of resistance and testing some of these areas above here. So then the next level is 521. Now 521 is way above here. So it's still got to get above this retracement here just to get to 521. But if it gets above here, okay, you get a price target up here. Looking at this again at, say, a year to date, because that's where that key high comes from. And again, we're looking at 520. $520 basically above this line. Yeah, so decent move above this line. I would not be surprised if it were to do that. But for me, I always know that the market's going to do what it's going to do. So when I'm doing things like unboxing my silver, I realize that the silver is either going to be very cheap or very expensive. For this test to me, if it succeeds, if it passes, that means what we've seen throughout most of last year will remain and come back into play. Bitcoin prices breaking past 12,000, 16,000, 20, 28, 34, so on and so forth. A lot of the alt crypto markets having nice up peaks as well. Most likely volatility along the way. At least 80, 70, at least a good fraction, 60, 75, 80% of the volatility we've seen last year, potentially even going more. Either way, high volatility. That would be passing the test. And doing so, I realized if I didn't buy the silver, say for example my last purchase of 36 ounces, if I would have just kept that Bitcoin and buy it later on when the price was higher, that could have been maybe 200 ounces of silver. Okay. But if the price action does fail, then I realize that we're looking at $3,000. And in that case, man, I'd be getting an amazing price on silver. But I look at it either way. If I'm wrong and this crypto situation fails, and my bankroll, which is very good right now, doesn't become as good, I'll be happy to have at least acquired what I have got. And market's going higher. I can say to myself later on, what do I do with some of these great things? I'm going to have some fun. Maybe I've got 2.5 million worth of cryptos. And I could have had maybe 5 million worth if I didn't buy this, I didn't buy that, and I didn't buy that. So be it. I don't care. That's a good situation to have happen. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.